Clara's knees hit the dirt before she could stop them. 1,500 miles. Every penny she had. Every scrap of hope left in her chest. And now the man she'd come to marry stood over her, his face cold as stone, saying words that shattered everything. "I never sent for a bride." The crowd laughed. Someone spat tobacco juice near her feet. Then a small voice cut through the cruelty, a boy barely 5 years old, pushing past grown men to reach her. "I wrote that letter, Papa. Please, I prayed for her to come." Subscribe now and follow Clara's journey to the end. Comment below, tell me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Silver Creek, Arizona Territory, summer of 1887. The train screeched to a stop, metal on metal, a sound like screaming. Clara Josephine Mercer pressed her hand against her chest, feeling the letter beneath her dress. The paper had gone soft from weeks of touching. The words were burned into her memory. "Come west. I need a wife. My son needs a mother. I ain't much for pretty words, but I'm honest and I work hard. If that's enough, write back." It had been enough. She had sold her mother's ring to buy the ticket. She had left Philadelphia in the dark before anyone could stop her, before Theodore could find her again. Now she was here. Clara stood. Her legs trembled, but she forced them steady. The conductor gave her a pitying look as she passed. "Good luck, miss. You're gonna need it." She didn't answer. She stepped off the train and into hell. The sun hit her like a fist. The air tasted like dust and horse sweat. Men lined the platform, dirty, loud, already staring. "Well, I'll be damned!" A thick voice cut through the noise. "Another mail-order bride." Clara turned. The man was big, red-faced. A gold tooth caught the light when he grinned. "What's the matter, sweetheart? Your husband ain't here to fetch you." He elbowed the man beside him. Maybe he took one look at her picture and changed his mind. Laughter erupted, crude, sharp. Clara's stomach twisted, but her face stayed still. She had learned long ago how to hide what she felt. "I'm looking for Elijah Callahan." The laughter stopped. The red-faced man's grin faded. He exchanged a look with his companion. "Callahan. You came all the way out here for Callahan." "That's right." "Lady Eli Callahan ain't talked to a woman since his wife died. You sure you got the right name?" Before Clara could answer, the crowd shifted. Men stepped aside, making a path. He came through slow, tall, shoulders broad enough to block the sun. His face was hard, not cruel, but closed, like a door that had been locked for years. His eyes found hers, dark brown, deep set, empty of everything except exhaustion. "I'm Elijah Callahan." Clara's heart slammed against her ribs. "Mr. Callahan, I'm Clara Mercer. I received your letter. I'm here to—" "I didn't send any letter." The words hit her like a slap. "I don't know what you're holding," he said, "but I didn't write it. I didn't send for you, and I don't want a wife." Clara felt the ground tilt. The faces around her blurred. 1,500 miles. Her mother's ring. Everything she had left. "You're lying." The words came out before she could stop them. "This is your name. Your address. Your— Lady, I don't know you." His voice was flat, final. "Go back where you came from." The red-faced man let out a whoop. "There it is. Told you, sweetheart. Wrong man, wrong town, wrong—" "Papa." Every head turned. A boy emerged from behind a water barrel. Small, dark curly hair, eyes too big for his face. He walked straight past the laughing men, past his father's outstretched hand, past everyone, until he stood directly in front of Clara. Then he reached up and took her hand. "You came," he whispered. "You really came." Eli's face went white. "Sammy, what did you do?" The boy didn't flinch. He turned to face his father, his small body, squared chin lifted. "I wrote the letter, Papa. I found the paper in your desk. The one with all the ladies' pictures and letters. I picked Miss Clara because she said she likes to read stories out loud, and she ain't scared of hard work." His voice cracked. "You've been so sad, Papa. I thought maybe she could help. Silence. Complete crushing silence. Clara looked down at the boy. His hand was shaking in hers, but he didn't let go. Sammy. Eli's voice was barely a whisper. You're 5 years old. You can't just... I'm almost 6, and I can read just fine. Mama taught me. Sammy's eyes filled with tears, but he blinked them back. I hear you crying at night, Papa, when you think I'm sleeping. I hear you. Something broke in Eli's face. Clara saw it, a crack in the stone. The red-faced man snorted. Well, ain't this a mess? Kid orders a mail-order bride like she's a new pair of boots. Shut your mouth, Briggs. Eli's voice cut like a knife. The big man's grin vanished. I was just saying. I know what you were saying, and I'm telling you to stop. Eli's hand dropped to his belt close to where a pistol would rest. This ain't your business. None of it. Briggs held up his hands, but his eyes went cold. Sure, Callahan? Sure. No offense meant. He stepped back, but he didn't leave. He watched, waited. Clara filed that away. She had known men like Briggs before. They didn't forget. They didn't forgive. Eli turned back to her. His jaw was tight. His hands were fists. I didn't send for you. My boy did. That ain't your fault, and it ain't mine. He paused. But you're here now. I am. You got money to get back east? No. Family waiting for you? No. Anyone who's gonna come looking? Clara hesitated, just for a heartbeat. No. Eli studied her face. She had the feeling he saw the lie, or at least sensed it. There's a boarding house at the end of Main Street. Woman named Maggie O'Brien runs it. She'll give you work in a room. Stay there. Not at my ranch. For how long? 1 week. After that, we'll figure out what comes next. The red-faced man, Briggs, let out a low laugh. 1 week, Callahan, you're softer than I thought. Taking in strays now. Eli didn't look at him, but when he spoke, his voice carried across the whole platform. This woman came here in good faith. She answered a letter. She spent every dime she had to get here. He paused. That deserves respect. Anyone who disagrees can take it up with me. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Sammy squeezed Clara's hand. You're staying. She looked down at him, at his hopeful eyes, at his trembling lip. I'm staying. Maggie O'Brien was 53 years old, 5 feet tall, and meaner than a rattlesnake with a toothache. You're the mail-order bride. Clara stood on the boarding house porch, her carpet bag heavy in her hand. Word travels fast. Honey, in Silver Creek, word travels before you even open your mouth. Maggie looked her up and down. You got money? No, ma'am. Can you cook? Yes, ma'am. Can you keep secrets? Clara met her eyes. I've kept plenty. Something flickered across Maggie's face. Approval, maybe. Or recognition. Come inside. You look like you're about to fall over. The boarding house was plain, but clean. Wooden floors. A narrow staircase. The smell of coffee and bacon grease. Maggie led her to a small room on the second floor. A bed, a washstand, a window overlooking the street. 5 in the morning, you're in my kitchen. You work breakfast and supper. In between, you can do as you please, long as it don't bring trouble to my door. Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien. Maggie. Mrs. O'Brien was my mother-in-law, and I hated that woman. She paused in the doorway. One more thing. Yes? That man at the station, the big one with the red face, Harlan Briggs. Clara nodded. I remember him. Stay away from him. He owns half the land around here and wants the other half. Eli's ranch sits right in the middle of what he's trying to build. Briggs has been trying to run him off for years. What's that got to do with me? Maggie's eyes hardened. Everything. You're connected to Eli now, whether you like it or not. That makes you a target. Briggs will use you if he can. Hurt you if he has to. She paused. "Watch your back, Clara Mercer. This town ain't kind to women alone." She left. The door clicked shut. Clara sat on the edge of the bed. Her hands were shaking now, the shaking she had held back all day. She pulled the letter from her pocket, read it again. The uneven handwriting, the simple words. A 5-year-old boy had written this. A child who heard his father crying at night and decided to fix it. Clara pressed the letter to her chest and let herself cry. Just for a minute, just enough to let the pressure out. Then she wiped her face, straightened her shoulders, and started unpacking. 3 days passed. Clara worked. Kitchen at 5, scrubbing pots by 6, serving breakfast to miners and ranch hands who stared at her like she was something strange. She kept her head down. She spoke only when spoken to. She learned the rhythms of the town. On the second night, a woman approached her in the kitchen. "You're the mail-order bride." Clara looked up from the dishes. The woman was young, maybe 25, pretty in a hard way. Her dress was too tight. Her eyes were too tired. "That's what they call me. I'm Ruby. I work at the saloon." She leaned against the counter. "The other girls are taking bets on how long you last." "What's the over-under?" Ruby laughed a short, surprised sound. 2 weeks. I got you at 3. Put your money on longer." Ruby studied her. "You got some steel in you. That's good. You're gonna need it." She paused. "Briggs has been asking about you." Clara's hands stilled. "What kind of questions?" "Where you came from. Why you're really here. Whether you got family back east who might come looking." Ruby's voice dropped. "He's planning something. I don't know what. But when Briggs starts asking questions, bad things follow." "Thanks for the warning." "Don't thank me. Just be careful." Ruby pushed off the counter. "And if you ever need help, real help, come find me. Us women gotta stick together in this town." She disappeared into the night. Clara finished the dishes. Her mind was racing. Briggs was asking questions about her past, about her family, about whether anyone would come looking. Theodore. The name rose up like bile in her throat. Theodore Ashford III, the man she had almost married, the man who had destroyed her family and then tried to destroy her. If he found out where she was, no. She pushed the thought down. He didn't know. He couldn't know. She had been careful. But even as she told herself that, a cold fear settled in her stomach, because Theodore always found what he was looking for. On the third evening, Clara was sweeping the boarding house porch when the sound of hoofbeats made her look up. Briggs. He rode a massive black horse flanked by 2 men she didn't recognize. He stopped right in front of the boarding house steps. "Evening, Miss Mercer." Clara kept sweeping. "Mr. Briggs? I was hoping we might have a word, just the 2 of us. I'm working." "It won't take long." He swung down from his horse, moving with surprising grace for a man his size. "I'm a businessman, Miss Mercer. I like to know who's new in my town." "Your town. In all the ways that matter." He climbed 2 steps, putting himself at her level. "I've been asking around about you. Interesting thing, nobody in Philadelphia seems to know a Clara Mercer." Clara's grip tightened on the broom. "I didn't live in the city proper." "Is that so?" He smiled. "That gold tooth again. See, I've got friends back east, influential friends. And when I described you pretty lady about 30 running from something, one of them got real interested." Clara forced her voice steady. "I'm not running from anything. Everybody's running from something." Briggs leaned closer. His breath smelled like whiskey and cigars. "Here's what I think. I think you're in trouble. Big trouble. The kind that follows you across a country." "You think wrong." "Maybe. Or maybe I send a telegram to my friend in Philadelphia. Describe you real good. See if anyone's willing to pay for information about where you ended up." Clara's blood went cold. "What do you want, Mr. Briggs?" His smile widened. "I want you to convince Elijah Callahan to sell me his ranch. The water rights, the grazing land, all of it. Fair price. Easy transaction. I don't have any influence over Mr. Callahan. Not yet, but you will. That's why you're here, ain't it, to become his wife? Briggs chuckled. A wife has all kinds of influence, and if you help me get what I want, I'll make sure nobody back east ever learns where you're hiding. Clara met his eyes. She let him see what was behind her mask just for a moment, the steel Ruby had noticed. And if I refuse? Briggs shrugged. Then I send that telegram tonight, and we see what crawls out of your past. He tipped his hat and climbed back on his horse. Think it over, Miss Mercer. You've got until Sunday. He rode away. His men followed. Clara stood frozen on the porch, the broom clutched in her white-knuckled hands. Sunday. 4 days. 4 days before Briggs destroyed everything. That night Clara couldn't sleep. She sat by the window watching the street below. The saloon was loud with music and laughter. The sheriff's office was dark. Nobody was coming to save her. Nobody ever had. She thought about running, taking what little she had and disappearing again. She had done it before. She could do it again. But then she thought about Sammy, his small hand in hers, his trembling voice. I prayed for her to come. A knock at the door made her jump. She crossed the room carefully, silently. Who's there? Sammy. Clara opened the door. The boy stood in the hallway barefoot in a nightshirt too big for him. Sammy. What are you doing here? It's the middle of the night. Does your father know? Papa's hurt. Clara's heart stopped. What? He was fixing the fence and the post fell on him. He can't get up. He told me to ride to town and get the doctor, but I saw your light and I didn't know where the doctor lives and... His voice cracked. Tears spilled down his cheeks. Please, Miss Clara, please help. Clara didn't hesitate. She grabbed her shawl and took his hand. Show me. The ride took 20 minutes. Clara held Sammy tight against her chest, the horse pounding through the darkness. Stars wheeled overhead. Coyotes howled in the distance. The ranch house was dark, except for a lantern burning in the barn. Clara slid off the horse before it fully stopped. Stay here. But... Stay here, Sammy. She ran. The barn door was open. She followed the light and found Eli on the ground. A fence post thick as a man's thigh lay across his leg. His face was gray with pain. Blood seeped from a gash on his forehead. Callahan? His eyes snapped open. What the hell, who? It's Clara Mercer. Sammy came to get me. I told him to get the doctor. The doctor wasn't there. I was. She dropped to her knees beside him. How bad is it? Can't move my leg. Might be broken. Clara studied the post. Too heavy to lift straight. But there a pitchfork leaning against the wall. I'm going to use leverage. When I lift you, pull your leg out. Can you do that? Lady, you can't. Can you do it or not? He stared at her. Then he nodded. Clara grabbed the pitchfork. She wedged the handle under the post, braced the tines against a feed barrel, and pushed down with everything she had. The post lifted. 2 inches. 3. Eli groaned and dragged his leg free. The post crashed down. Clara collapsed against the barrel, gasping. Her palms were torn and bleeding. Her arms felt like they'd been ripped from their sockets. You did it. Eli's voice was hoarse with disbelief. You actually did it. Your leg. Can you move it? He tried, winced. It ain't broken. Bruised to hell, but not broken. Thank God. Sammy appeared in the doorway. His face crumpled with relief when he saw his father sitting up. Papa! He ran and threw himself into Eli's arms. Eli held him tight, his eyes squeezed shut. When he opened them again, they were wet. You did good, son. You found help. You did real good. Sammy looked up at Clara. She came, Papa, just like I knew she would. Eli's gaze found Clara. She sat against the barrel, blood dripping from her palm's hair, falling from its pins. You should have gone for the doctor, he said. Your son needed help now, not in an hour. You're hurt. I'll live. He stared at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression. Not warmth, not yet. But the coldness cracked, just a little. Sammy, get the bandages from the house, and the whiskey. The boy ran off. Eli pushed himself up, leaning heavily against a hay bale. He didn't try to stand. Why? He asked. Why what? Why'd you come all this way? The truth. Clara looked at her bleeding hands, at the barn around her, at the stars visible through the open door. Because I had nothing left, she said quietly. My father's dead. My mother's dead. The man I was supposed to marry. She stopped. What about him? He's the reason I ran. He's the reason I answered your son's letter. He's the reason I can't go back. She met his eyes. Is that enough truth for you? Eli was silent for a long time. Briggs came to see me today, he said finally. Offered to buy my land again. Said he had new leverage. Wouldn't say what. Clara's stomach dropped. What did you tell him? Same thing I always tell him. This land belonged to my wife. I'll die before I sell it. He's not going to stop. I know. He threatened me, said he'd contact people back east. People who... She couldn't finish. Eli's jaw tightened. That's why you're really here, ain't it, running from someone who hurt you? Clara didn't answer. Sammy returned with bandages and a bottle. Eli took Clara's hands gently, more gently than she expected, and began cleaning the wounds. This man back east, he said quietly so Sammy wouldn't hear. He dangerous. Yes. He coming for you. If he finds out where I am. Eli wrapped the bandage around her palm. His hands were rough but careful. Then we won't let him find out. Clara looked up. What? You came here for a new start. My boy brought you here. That means something. He finished the bandage and released her hands. Whatever's chasing you, you don't face it alone. Not anymore. Clara's throat tightened. She didn't trust her voice. Sammy climbed onto the hay bale between them. He leaned against his father's shoulder and looked up at Clara. Are you going to stay Miss Clara for real? She looked at Eli. He didn't smile. His face was still guarded, still closed, but he gave a small nod. I'm staying, Clara said. Sammy grinned. I knew it. I knew the letter would work. Eli's expression flickered. Not a smile. Not yet. But maybe, just maybe, the beginning of one. Outside, the night stretched dark and endless. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, and 500 miles to the east in a telegram office in Denver, a man in a tailored suit sent a message to Philadelphia. Found her. Silver Creek, Arizona territory. Send instructions. The week was far from over. Briggs was circling like a vulture, and the shadows of Clara's past were already stretching toward Silver Creek. But she wasn't running anymore. This time she would stand and fight. The morning sun found Clara still at the Callahan ranch. She had fallen asleep in the chair by the fireplace, her bandaged hands folded in her lap. When she opened her eyes, Sammy was staring at her from 3 inches away. You snore, he said. Clara sat up too fast. Pain shot through her arms. I do not. Do too. Like a little bear. He grinned. Papa's making breakfast. He said to let you sleep, but I got bored. Clara looked toward the kitchen. The smell of bacon drifted through the house. She could hear Eli moving around the scrape of a pan, the clink of plates. She stood wincing. Every muscle in her body screamed from last night's effort. Miss Clara? Yes. Are you gonna be my new mama? The question hit her like a punch. Clara knelt down, ignoring the protest of her aching legs. Sammy, I don't know what's going to happen. Your papa and I barely know each other. But you stayed. You helped him. That's what mamas do. That's what anyone decent would do. Sammy shook his head. No. Lots of people ain't decent. I seen it. But you are. He reached out and touched her bandaged hand, gentle as a whisper. "Your hands got hurt saving Papa. That means something." Clara didn't know what to say. She was saved from answering by Eli's voice from the doorway. "Sammy, leave Miss Mercer alone and wash up for breakfast." The boy scampered off. Eli stood there leaning on a makeshift crutch, his injured leg wrapped tight. He looked like hell, pale, unshaven dark circles under his eyes. But he was standing. That was something. "You should be in bed," Clara said. "I've worked through worse." "That's not something to brag about." Something flickered across his face. Almost a smile. "Almost. Breakfast is ready. You should eat before you head back to town." Clara followed him to the kitchen. The table was set with 3 plates, bacon, eggs, biscuits. Simple fare, but more than she had expected. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Sammy attacked his food like he hadn't eaten in days. Eli ate slowly, watching Clara when he thought she wasn't looking. "Thank you," he said finally, "for last night. I don't say that easy, but I mean it. You already thanked me. Once ain't enough for what you did." Clara set down her fork. "Then repay me by telling me about Briggs, the real story, not the version everyone whispers about." Eli's jaw tightened. He glanced at Sammy, then back at Clara. "Sammy, go check on the horses." "But I ain't finished." "Now." The boy grabbed a biscuit and ran out. The door banged behind him. Eli pushed his plate aside. Harlan Briggs came to Silver Creek 8 years ago. Had money, had connections. Started buying up land piece by piece. Most folks sold willingly, he paid fair at first. What changed? He got greedy, started wanting land people didn't want to sell. The water rights especially. Whoever controls the water out here controls everything. And your ranch has water. Best creek in the territory runs right through my property. Mary Beth's father homesteaded this land 30 years ago. He knew what he was doing. Eli's voice softened when he said his wife's name. When he died, she inherited. When she died, it passed to me, to Sammy. Briggs wants it. Briggs needs it. He's building an empire, and my land is the missing piece. Without my water, half his cattle die in summer. Eli met her eyes. He's offered to buy 3 times, threatened twice. I ain't selling. He threatened you. Burned my hay barn 2 years ago. Couldn't prove it was him, but everyone knew. Poisoned my well last spring. I had to dig a new one. His hands curled into fists. He wants me gone. Broke. Desperate. He figured if he waited long enough, I'd give up. But you didn't. I can't. This land is all I have left of her. All Sammy has of his mother. He paused. I'd rather die than sell. Clara understood, more than he knew. He's using me, she said quietly. Whatever he's planning, I'm part of it now. I know. That doesn't bother you. Eli looked at her, really looked for the first time since she'd arrived. You didn't ask for this. You came here looking for a new start. My boy dragged you into our mess. He paused. The least I can do is stand between you and whatever's coming. Clara shook her head. I don't need you to protect me. Maybe not, but I'm going to anyway. Before she could respond, Sammy burst through the door. Papa, there's riders coming. 3 of them. Eli grabbed his rifle from above the fireplace. His injured leg nearly buckled, but he caught himself on the table. Stay inside, both of you. Eli, stay inside. He limped out the door. Clara moved to the window, pulling Sammy behind her. 3 men on horseback approached the ranch. Briggs wasn't among them, but she recognized the 2 who had flanked him yesterday. The 3rd was a stranger, thin, rat-faced, wearing a deputy's badge. Eli stood on the porch, rifle in hand. His voice carried across the yard. That's close enough. The deputy held up his hands. Easy, Callahan. This is official business. What kind of business? Got a complaint filed against you. Harlan Briggs says you threatened him yesterday. Says you drew a weapon. That's a damn lie. Maybe so, but I got to investigate. You want to do this civil, or you want to make it difficult? Clara's blood ran cold. This was Briggs's play. Use the law to pressure Eli. Get him arrested, locked up. Leave the ranch unprotected. Leave her unprotected. She moved before she could think. Pushed through the door and stepped onto the porch beside Eli. I was there, she said loudly. At the train station. Mr. Callahan never drew a weapon. He never threatened anyone. The deputy squinted at her. And who might you be? Clara Mercer. I witnessed the entire exchange. Mr. Briggs was the aggressor, not Mr. Callahan. Lady, I don't recall asking for your opinion. You're investigating a complaint. I'm providing testimony. That's how the law works, isn't it? The deputy's face reddened. The two men beside him exchanged glances. The complaint stands, the deputy said. Callahan, you're going to have to come into town and answer questions. On what authority? On the authority of Harlan Briggs, who pays my salary. The deputy caught himself too late. His face went slack. Eli's grip tightened on the rifle. Get off my land. Now listen here. I said, get off my land. You ain't a real lawman. You're Briggs's dog, and I don't answer to dogs. The tension stretched like a wire about to snap. Then one of Briggs's men spoke. Let it go, Earl. This ain't worth getting shot over. The deputy glared, but he turned his horse. This ain't over, Callahan. Briggs is going to hear about this. Tell him whatever you want. My door's always open. The three men rode off. Clara didn't breathe until they disappeared over the hill. Eli lowered the rifle. His hands were shaking. You shouldn't have done that, he said. Done what? Told the truth. Gotten involved. Now Briggs knows you'll stand with me. That puts a target on your back. There was already a target on my back. At least now I chose where to stand. Eli stared at her. The morning sun caught the lines on his face, the gray at his temples, the exhaustion in his eyes. You're either the bravest woman I ever met, he said slowly, or the craziest. Maybe both. He almost smiled again. Closer this time. I'll take you back to town. Maggie's probably wondering where you are. Clara nodded, but as they walked toward the wagon, she looked back at the ranch house, at the porch where Eli had stood his ground, at the window where Sammy watched with wide eyes. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about something worth fighting for. The ride back to town took half an hour. Eli drove the wagon with his injured leg stretched out jaw tight against the pane. Clara sat beside him, her bandaged hands folded in her lap. They didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, just heavy with unspoken things. Finally, Eli broke it. What he said, Briggs, about sending word back east. He kept his eyes on the road. Who's waiting for you, Clara? She had known this question was coming. She had dreaded it. His name is Theodore Ashford, the third. She let out a bitter laugh. He always made sure people knew the third, like it mattered. Who is he to you? He was my fiancé, 2 years ago. Eli's hands tightened on the reins. What happened? Clara watched the desert roll past. The scrub brush. The distant mountains. A landscape so different from Philadelphia, it might as well be another planet. He was charming, rich, came from one of the oldest families in the city. When he proposed, I thought my life was finally coming together. She paused. My father worked for his family's bank. A bookkeeper. Nothing important. But my father was honest, too honest. Her voice hardened. He found something in the accounts, money moving where it shouldn't, payments to people who didn't exist. He brought it to Theodore's father. Let me guess. They didn't thank him. They destroyed him, called him a thief, said he was the one stealing, had him arrested. Clara's throat tightened. The trial lasted 3 days. My father was convicted on forged evidence. He hanged himself in his cell before sentencing. Eli was silent. My mother died 6 months later. Heartbreak, the doctor said. I think she just gave up. Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. Theodore came to me after the funeral, said he was sorry, said he still wanted to marry me, said we could put it all behind us. But you knew the truth. I knew he was part of it. Maybe not the mastermind, but he knew. He knew what his family did to mine, and he came to my mother's grave offering me his ring like it was a gift. What did you do? Clara looked at him. I told him no. I told him I knew what he was. I told him I would expose his family if it was the last thing I did. Eli let out a low whistle. That was dangerous. I was grieving. I wasn't thinking clearly. But I meant every word. She paused. The next day, men came to my boarding house, warned me to keep quiet. When I didn't, they burned my belongings. When I still didn't, they spread rumors about me, said I was a woman of loose morals. No respectable family would hire me after that. So you ran. I had no choice. I saw the advertisement for mail-order brides. I answered every letter that came from far enough away. Yours, Sammy's, was the only one that felt real. The wagon crested a small hill. Silver Creek spread out below them, dusty and quiet in the morning sun. Theodore won't stop, Clara said. If Briggs contacts him, if he learns where I am, he'll come. Not because he wants me, because he can't stand losing. I'm the only one who knows what his family did. The only one who can still hurt them. Eli pulled the wagon to a stop. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. Then we don't let him find you. You can't fight someone like Theodore. He has money, power, lawyers. I've got something he doesn't. What? A town full of people who don't give a damn about Philadelphia money. Eli's voice was steady. Briggs is bad, but he's local bad. We know how to handle him. Your Theodore, he's an outsider. He comes here, he plays by our rules. You make it sound simple. It ain't. But nothing worth doing ever is. They looked at each other for a long moment. Something passed between them, not trust, not yet, but the beginning of understanding. Then Eli clicked his tongue, and the wagon started moving again. Maggie was waiting on the boarding house porch when they arrived. Her arms were crossed. Her face was thunderous. 12 hours, she said as Clara climbed down. You've been gone 12 hours. I had half the town convinced you'd been murdered. I'm sorry, Maggie. There was an emergency at the Callahan Ranch. I heard. Whole town heard by now. Maggie's eyes flicked to Eli. You look like death warmed over. Feel like it too. Then go home and rest. I'll take care of her. Eli hesitated. He looked at Clara, then at Maggie, then back at Clara. I'll come by tomorrow. Check on things. Clara nodded. I'll be here. He drove off. Maggie watched him go, then turned to Clara with raised eyebrows. Well, well, that's the most words I've heard Eli Callahan string together in 4 years. He's not as closed off as people think. Maybe not to you. Maggie ushered her inside. Come on, you need food rest and a bath, in that order. But Clara barely heard her. Her mind was spinning with everything that had happened, everything that was coming. Briggs, Theodore, the deputy, the telegram. 4 days until Sunday. 4 days until Briggs made his move. And somewhere out there, a message was racing toward Philadelphia. Found her. Silver Creek, Arizona territory. Send instructions. Clara had run for 2 years. She had crossed a continent to escape her past, but the past was coming anyway. The next 3 days blurred together like watercolors in the rain. Clara worked the boarding house kitchen from dawn to dark. She scrubbed pots until her bandaged hands ached. She served miners and cowboys who stared at her with curiosity, suspicion, or something worse. She kept her head down. She listened. She learned. On the second day, Ruby appeared at the back door with news. Briggs sent 2 telegrams yesterday, one to Denver, one to somewhere back east. Philadelphia, I think. Clara's stomach dropped. How do you know? I know the telegraph operator. He owes me favors. Ruby leaned against the doorframe. Whatever you're running from, it's gonna catch up soon. You got a plan. I'm working on it. Work faster. Ruby left. Clara stood alone in the kitchen flour, on her hands dread in her heart. That evening, Eli came to town. He walked into the boarding house dining room, still limping, but steadier than before. Sammy was with him, clutching a handful of wildflowers. "Miss Clara." The boy ran to her, thrusting the flowers forward. "I picked these for you. Papa said you were feeling poorly. Flowers make people feel better. Mama used to say that." Clara took the flowers. Her throat was tight. "They're beautiful, Sammy. Thank you." Eli stood back watching. When their eyes met, something passed between them, an acknowledgement of shared danger, shared secrets, shared stakes. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. "Alone." Clara nodded. She handed the flowers to Maggie and followed Eli outside. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. They walked to the end of the porch, out of earshot of the open windows. "Briggs came to see me again," Eli said. "This morning." "What did he want?" "Same thing he always wants, my land." Eli's jaw tightened. "But this time he had leverage. Said he knew about your situation. Said he'd make sure your friend back east learned exactly where to find you." Clara felt the blood drain from her face. "He's bluffing." "He's not. He showed me a copy of the telegram he sent. Names, dates, details about you that only someone who'd done research would know." "How did he—" "Briggs has connections everywhere. He's been building this network for years." Eli turned to face her. "He gave me an ultimatum. Sell the ranch by Sunday, or he tells your Theodore exactly where you are." Clara's legs threatened to give out. She grabbed the porch railing for support. "I won't let you lose your ranch because of me." "It ain't your decision." "Yes, it is. If I leave, if I disappear, Briggs loses his leverage. And Theodore finds you anyway. Briggs already sent the telegram. Running won't change that." "Then what do we do?" Eli was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low and steady. "We fight. Hal Briggs owns half this town. He owns the deputy. He has money, men influence. He doesn't own everyone." Eli stepped closer. "Tomorrow morning I'm going to the real sheriff. Not the deputy, the county sheriff in Tucson. I'm going to file a formal complaint about Briggs's threats. About the telegram. About everything. That'll take days. We don't have days. Then we buy time." He paused. "There's something else. Something I should have told you before." Clara waited. "Briggs's empire isn't as solid as he pretends. He's leveraged. Owes money to banks in Denver. If he doesn't expand his cattle operation this year, he goes under." Eli's eyes met hers. "He needs my land because he's desperate. And desperate men make mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" "The kind that get them arrested or shot." Clara shivered despite the warm evening air. "You're talking about provoking him." "I'm talking about giving him rope to hang himself." Eli's voice hardened. "Briggs has been untouchable because nobody stood up to him. Because everyone was too scared. But if we fight back, if we show this town that he can be beaten, we become targets. We're already targets. Might as well be targets who punch back." Clara looked out at the darkening street. A few lanterns were coming on in windows. The saloon piano started up tinny and distant. "You barely know me," she said quietly. "You're risking everything. Your ranch, your son's future, for a woman you met 4 days ago." "My son chose you." Eli's voice softened. "He saw something in your letter. Something real. And after watching you these past few days, seeing how you carry yourself, how you fight, I'm starting to think he was right." Clara turned to face him. "Right about what?" "About you being exactly what this family needs." The words hung between them. Heavy. Charged. Then Sammy's voice broke the moment. "Papa." Miss Clara Maggie made pie. Eli stepped back, the intensity fading from his expression. "We should go in." Clara nodded, but as she followed him inside, her heart was beating faster than it should. He had called her what this family needs. Not what he needed, what the family needed. It wasn't a declaration, it wasn't a promise, but it was something. And in a world where she had nothing, something felt like everything. Sunday came faster than Clara expected. She woke before dawn, a cold knot of dread in her stomach. Today was the day, Briggs's deadline. She dressed quickly and went downstairs. Maggie was already in the kitchen, her face grim. "There's trouble coming," the older woman said without preamble. "I can feel it in my bones." "What kind of trouble?" "The kind that rides into town with guns." Maggie handed her a cup of coffee. "Briggs's men were gathering at his ranch last night. I heard it from Ruby. Something's happening today." Clara's hands trembled around the cup. "Where's Eli?" "He rode out to Tucson yesterday. Won't be back until tomorrow at the earliest." "He left now." "He went to see the sheriff, file the complaint. It was the plan." Maggie's voice softened. "He didn't know Briggs would move this fast." Clara set down the coffee. Her mind raced. Eli was gone. The real sheriff was miles away. The deputy was in Briggs's pocket. And somewhere a telegram was speeding toward Philadelphia with her location. "I need to get to the ranch," she said. "Are you out of your mind? Briggs's men are probably already there." "Sammy's there. Alone except for the ranch hand. If Briggs makes a move..." "Clara, you can't." But Clara was already moving. She grabbed her shawl and ran for the door. The ride to Callahan Ranch took longer on foot. Clara half ran, half walked, her lungs burning, her bandaged hands throbbing. The sun climbed higher. The heat pressed down. She smelled the smoke before she saw it. Black clouds rose from behind the hill. Clara's heart seized. She pushed herself faster, cresting the rise at a dead run. The hay barn was on fire. Flames leaped from the roof, sending sparks into the morning sky. 3 men on horseback circled the blaze, watching it burn. And on the porch of the main house, Sammy stood alone. Clara didn't think. She ran toward the house, screaming the boy's name. The horsemen turned. One of them, she recognized him as Briggs's man from the train station, spurred toward her. "Well, look who came to visit." He grinned down at her. "Boss will be happy to see you." "Get away from that boy." "Can't do that, ma'am. We got orders." "Orders to terrorize a child. Orders to deliver a message." He leaned down from his horse. "Callahan has until sundown to agree to sell. If he doesn't, the main house goes next, with everything in it." Clara's blood ran cold. "You can't." "We can, and we will." He tipped his hat. "Enjoy the show." He rode back to join his companions. They formed a loose circle around the property, watching, waiting. Clara ran to the porch. Sammy threw himself into her arms. "Miss Clara, they came and started the fire, and I didn't know what to do, and Papa's not here, and..." "Shh, it's okay. I'm here." She held him tight, her eyes scanning the property. "Where's Pete?" "The ranch hand." "They hit him. He's in the barn." "The other barn." Sammy's voice cracked. "Is he dead?" "No, baby, he's not dead." Clara prayed she wasn't lying. "Listen to me. I need you to go inside. Lock the doors. Don't come out until I tell you. Can you do that?" "But what about you?" "I'm going to fix this." "How?" Clara looked at the burning barn, at the men circling like vultures, at the smoke blackening the sky. "I don't know yet, but I will." She pushed Sammy inside and heard the bolt slide home. Then she turned to face the horsemen. 3 against 1. No weapons. No backup. Just her. Clara walked toward them, her chin high, her stride steady. The men watched her approach with amusement. "Going somewhere, ma'am?" "I want to see Briggs." "He's busy." Then make him unbusy. Tell him Clara Mercer wants to talk. She paused. Tell him I'm ready to make a deal. The men exchanged glances. One of them shrugged and rode off toward town. 20 minutes later, Harlan Briggs arrived. He dismounted slowly, savoring the moment. His gold tooth caught the light as he smiled. Miss Mercer, I'm pleased you've come to your senses. I haven't come to anything. I'm here to negotiate. Negotiate? Briggs laughed. You have nothing to negotiate with. I have information about Theodore Ashford, about what his family did, about the evidence I'm carrying. Clara held his gaze. Evidence that could destroy them if it reached the right people. Briggs's smile faltered. What kind of evidence? The kind that's worth more than a cattle ranch in Arizona. Clara took a step closer. Here's my offer. You leave Eli Callahan alone. You stop the threats, the fires, all of it. And in exchange, I'll give you everything I have on the Ashford family. Why would I want? Because Theodore Ashford is richer than you'll ever be, and he'd pay anything to keep his family's secrets buried. You want money? There's more money in blackmailing a Philadelphia dynasty than in stealing land from a widowed rancher. Briggs was silent. She could see him calculating, weighing the options. You're bluffing, he said finally. Am I? Clara reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded paper. She didn't hand it to him, just let him see it. This is a list of every payment the Ashfords made to cover up their crimes. Names, amounts, dates. There's more where this came from. Briggs stared at the paper. His tongue darted across his lips. If this is real, it's real, and it's yours if you agree to my terms. A long moment passed. The burning barn crackled and roared behind them. Then Briggs smiled a cold, calculating smile that made Clara's skin crawl. I think we can do business, Miss Mercer, but not here. He gestured to his men. Put out that fire and bring her to my office. We have a lot to discuss. Clara stood still as Briggs's men dismounted and began fighting the flames. She had bought time. Maybe. But as she climbed into Briggs's carriage, she knew the truth. She had just made a deal with one devil to fight another, and the night was far from over. Briggs's office sat above the Silver Creek Bank, a building he owned along with half the town. The walls were lined with maps, ledgers, deeds to properties he had swallowed one by one. A massive oak desk dominated the center of the room, and behind it hung a portrait of Briggs himself painted to look nobler than he was. Clara sat in a leather chair across from him, her hands folded in her lap, her heart pounding against her ribs. She kept her face calm. She had learned long ago how to wear masks. Briggs poured himself a whiskey and didn't offer her one. Let's be clear about something, Miss Mercer. He swirled the amber liquid in his glass. I don't trust you. Good, I don't trust you either. Then we understand each other. He sat down, the chair creaking under his weight. Now, this evidence you claim to have, I want to see all of it. You saw the list. That's enough for now. It's not enough for a man in my position. I need to know what I'm buying before I buy it. Clara leaned forward. You're not buying anything. You're making a trade. My evidence for Eli Callahan's freedom. That's the deal. Briggs laughed a low, ugly sound. You think I'm going to let Callahan off the hook just because you wave some papers at me that land is worth a fortune? The water rights alone could fund my operations for decades. And the Ashford fortune could fund them for generations. Maybe. If your evidence is real. If Theodore Ashford actually cares enough to pay. Briggs leaned back. But here's what I'm thinking. Why choose? Why not take both? Clara's blood went cold. That wasn't the deal. Deals change. Briggs's smile widened. Here's my counteroffer. You give me everything you have on the Ashfords. I contact Theodore, arrange a nice little transaction. And Callahan still sells me his ranch at a discount now for all the trouble he's caused. No. No! Briggs raised an eyebrow. Miss Mercer, I don't think you understand your position. You're alone. Callahan is miles away. Nobody in this town is going to help you. You're wrong about that. Am I? He stood walking around the desk until he loomed over her. Let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to stay right here in this office until I've verified your evidence. Then we're going to send a telegram to Theodore Ashford, letting him know exactly where his runaway bride is hiding. And when he comes, and he will come, I'm going to sell you to the highest bidder. Clara stood so fast her chair scraped against the floor. You can't keep me here. I can do whatever I want. This is my town. Briggs grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. Did you really think you could outplay me, a woman alone running from her past, with nothing but a handful of papers and a prayer? Clara met his eyes. She let him see the fear because it was real, but underneath it something harder. I'm not alone. Callahan? He's not here. He will be. Briggs laughed again. By the time he gets back, it'll be too late. For you, for him, for that brat of his. Clara's vision went red. She moved without thinking, bringing her knee up hard into Briggs's gut. He doubled over, gasping, and she wrenched free from his grip. She ran. The door was locked. She spun, looking for another way out, but Briggs was already straightening up, his face twisted with rage. You're going to regret that. He lunged at her. Clara grabbed the first thing she could reach, a heavy brass paperweight, and swung it at his head. It connected with a sickening crack. Briggs staggered, blood streaming from his temple. Help! Clara screamed, pounding on the door. Someone help! Footsteps thundered on the stairs. The door burst open. But it wasn't Briggs's men. It was Maggie O'Brien, Ruby behind her, and behind them, a crowd of women from the boarding house and the saloon. Step away from her, Briggs. Maggie's voice was ice. She held a shotgun leveled at his chest. Briggs stared at the women filling his doorway. Blood dripped down his face. You can't, this is your town. Maggie cocked the shotgun. Not anymore. We've been putting up with your bullying for years. Watching you squeeze honest folks out of their homes. Watching you threaten and burn and steal. She stepped closer. It ends tonight. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was waiting this long. Ruby pushed past Maggie and took Clara's arm. Are you hurt? No, I'm okay. Clara's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. How did you know? I saw Briggs's men bring you here, told Maggie. She gathered the troops. Ruby grinned fiercely. Turns out a lot of women in this town were just waiting for someone to stand up first. Briggs stumbled back against his desk. You'll pay for this, all of you. I have connections. Your connections don't mean much when you're bleeding on your own floor. Maggie kept the shotgun trained on him. Clara, get out of here. Go back to the ranch. Make sure Sammy's safe. But, go. We'll handle this. Clara hesitated. Then she nodded and ran. The night air hit her like a wave. She gulped it in her lungs, burning her legs trembling. Behind her she could hear voices, Maggie's steady commands, Briggs's angry protests, the murmur of the growing crowd. She had to get to Sammy. She found a horse tied outside the general store. She didn't know whose it was. She didn't care. She swung into the saddle and kicked it into a gallop. The ride to the Callahan ranch was a blur of darkness and dust. The moon hung low, casting silver shadows across the desert. Clara's heart pounded in time with the hoofbeats. Please be okay. Please be okay. Please. The ranch came into view. The hay barn was still smoldering, but the main house stood intact. A lantern burned in the window. Clara jumped off the horse before it fully stopped. She ran to the porch, threw open the door. Sammy! The boy launched himself at her from the darkness. His arms wrapped around her waist, his face buried against her stomach. Miss Clara, I was so scared. The men went away, but I didn't know where you were, and I'm here. I'm here. Clara held him tight, tears streaming down her face. "You're safe. I've got you." "Where's Papa?" Clara's throat tightened. "He'll be back soon, I promise." She carried Sammy to the settee and sat with him in her lap. His small body shook with sobs. She stroked his hair, murmuring soothing words, trying to calm her own racing heart. They sat like that for a long time. The lantern flickered. The night grew quiet. Then she heard hoofbeats. Clara's body tensed. She moved Sammy aside and stood grabbing the rifle from above the fireplace. The door opened. Eli stood in the doorway, dusty and exhausted, his face white with fear. "Clara? Sammy?" His voice cracked. "I saw the smoke. I thought—" Clara set down the rifle. "We're okay. We're all okay." Eli crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled Sammy into his arms. The boy clung to him, crying again, saying "Papa," over and over. Then Eli looked up at Clara over his son's head. His eyes were wet. "What happened?" Clara told him. "Everything. Briggs's threats, the fire, the confrontation in his office, Maggie and the women, her escape." Eli listened in silence, his jaw tightening with every word. When she finished, he set Sammy down gently. "Go to your room, son. I need to talk to Miss Clara." "But, please." Sammy looked between them, then nodded and trudged upstairs. Eli waited until the door closed. Then he turned to Clara. "You almost got yourself killed." "I was trying to protect your son." "By making a deal with Briggs, by going to his office alone." His voice rose. "Do you have any idea what he could have done to you?" "I know exactly what he could have done. That's why I did it." Clara's chin lifted. "If I hadn't, he would have burned your house down with Sammy inside. I bought time. I found leverage. I fought back." "You should have waited for me." "You weren't here." The words echoed in the silence. Clara's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "You weren't here, Eli. You rode off to Tucson while Briggs was gathering his men. I had to do something. I couldn't just—" "I know." His voice softened. "I know, and I'm grateful. More than I can say." He stepped closer. "But when I saw that smoke, Clara, when I thought something had happened to you and Sammy—" He couldn't finish. Clara looked up at him. His face was raw with emotion, fear, relief, something deeper. "I'm not going anywhere," she said quietly. "Promise me." "I already did. I promised Sammy." "I'm not asking for Sammy. I'm asking for me." Clara's breath caught. They were close now, close enough that she could see the lines around his eyes, the gray in his stubble, the tremor in his hands. "Eli." "I spent 4 years telling myself I didn't need anyone, that Sammy and I could make it on our own, that letting someone in would just mean more pain when they left." He reached up his rough hand, cupping her face. "But you walked off that train, and my son took your hand, and everything I thought I knew just fell apart. We've known each other a week. Doesn't matter. Time doesn't mean anything out here. What matters is what you do when things get hard." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "You stood up for my son. You faced down Briggs. You nearly got killed trying to protect what's mine. That's worth more than years of courting ever could be." Clara leaned into his touch. "I don't know what's coming. Theodore Briggs, whatever happens next. We face it together. You don't know what Theodore is capable of. Don't care. He'll destroy you if he can. Let him try." There was no hesitation in his voice, no doubt, just steady, immovable certainty. Clara closed her eyes. For the first time in 2 years, she felt something she had almost forgotten existed. Safe. "Okay," she whispered. Eli leaned down. His lips brushed her forehead, gentle, reverent, a promise more than a kiss. "Okay," he echoed. The morning came too fast. Clara woke on the settee, A blanket draped over her, the smell of coffee filling the house. Sunlight streamed through the windows. She sat up and found Eli at the kitchen table, a telegram in his hands. His face was pale. "What is it?" He looked up. "It came this morning, from the telegraph office in town." Clara's stomach dropped. "What does it say?" Eli handed her the paper. She read it once, then again, the words blurring. "Arriving Thursday on 2 p.m. train. Prepare adequate accommodations. We'll be bringing federal marshal and legal documents. Clara Mercer will return to Philadelphia to face charges. Theodore Ashford III. Thursday, 3 days away." Clara's hands shook. "He's coming." "Yeah. With a federal marshal and charges." She laughed bitterly. "He manufactured charges. Of course he did. He probably bribed a judge to issue a warrant." "Can he do that?" "He can do anything he wants. That's what money buys." Clara set the telegram down. "I should run. If I leave now." "No." "Eli, you don't understand. A federal marshal means this is official. I can't fight that. I can't—" "You're not running." His voice was steady. "Not anymore. He'll drag me back to Philadelphia. He'll lock me up. He won't do anything, because you're not going to be Clara Mercer when he arrives." Clara stared at him. "What?" Eli stood. He crossed to where she sat and knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. "Marry me." The words hung in the air. "What?" "Marry me. Today. Pastor Williams can do it right now this morning. By the time Theodore gets here, you'll be Clara Callahan, my wife, under my protection." "That's Eli, that's crazy." "Maybe, but it's also smart." His grip tightened on her hands. "A married woman can't be compelled to leave her husband. Whatever charges Theodore's cooked up, they can't drag a wife away from her home without a fight. It'll buy time. Time for the county sheriff to get here. Time for Maggie's women to spread the word. Time for this town to show Theodore Ashford that Silver Creek doesn't bow to Philadelphia money." Clara's mind raced. It was insane. They had known each other a week. Marriage was supposed to be. But what was it supposed to be? Love letters and courtship and slow, proper steps toward a future she might never get to see. Or was it this standing shoulder to shoulder against the darkness, choosing each other because there was no one else? Because the choice itself meant more than all the roses and promises in the world. "Sammy," she said. "What about Sammy?" "What about him? He's the one who brought you here. He's been asking me every day when you're going to be his mama for real." Eli's voice cracked. "He loves you, Clara. And He stopped. "You what?" "I'm not good with words. You know that." He looked down at their joined hands. "But I know what I feel. I know that when I'm with you, the darkness doesn't press so hard. I know that when you smile at my boy, my heart does things I thought it forgot how to do. I know that if you leave, if Theodore takes you away, it'll break something in me that won't ever heal." Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. "That's pretty good with words for someone who claims he isn't." "Must be inspired." She laughed. It came out half-sob. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Really sure? Because it's not how it's supposed to happen. Nothing about us is how it's supposed to happen. You came here to marry a stranger who didn't know you existed. My 5-year-old son sent for you like he was ordering supplies. And now we're hiding from a man who wants to drag you across the country in chains." Eli's eyes met hers. "I don't care about supposed to. I care about right. And this, you and me and Sammy, feels right." Clara looked at him. At his weathered face, his steady eyes, his hands strong and calloused and gentle all at once. She had spent 2 years running. Running from Theodore, from Philadelphia, from her own past. Maybe it was time to stop. "Okay." Eli blinked. "Okay. I'll marry you." She squeezed his hands. Today. Right now. Before I come to my senses and realize how crazy this is. A smile broke across his face, the first real smile she had ever seen from him. It transformed him, made him look younger, lighter, like the man he might have been before grief had carved its lines. "Sammy," he called. "Get down here." Footsteps thundered on the stairs. The boy burst into the room still in his nightshirt. "What? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Eli stood and pulled Clara to her feet beside him. "Miss Clara and I are getting married. This morning. You want to come?" Sammy's face went through about 6 expressions in 2 seconds. Then he let out a whoop and launched himself at both of them, his arms somehow wrapping around them both. "I knew it!" he shouted. "I knew the letter would work. I knew it!" Clara laughed, holding the boy close, feeling Eli's arm around her shoulders. For one perfect moment, everything was right. The wedding took place in Pastor Williams's small church, with Maggie as witness, and Ruby throwing wildflowers she'd gathered from behind the saloon. Sammy stood beside his father, holding the simple gold band that had belonged to Eli's mother. The ceremony was short. Simple words, said quietly, sealed with a kiss that felt like a promise. When they walked out into the sunlight, Clara was no longer Clara Mercer. She was Clara Callahan. The news spread through Silver Creek like wildfire. By noon, half the town knew. By evening, the other half was debating what it meant. Briggs heard too. He was nursing his wounds in his office, his empire suddenly fragile, the women who had confronted him now watching his every move. When one of his men brought word of the wedding, he threw a bottle against the wall. "Married. She married him. This morning, boss. Pastor Williams did it official." Briggs paced the room, glass crunching under his boots. "It doesn't matter. Theodore's still coming. He's got a federal marshal, a warrant." For Clara Mercer, not Clara Callahan. "It's the same damn woman. Law might see it different." Briggs stopped pacing. His eyes narrowed. "Then we make sure the law sees it our way." He grabbed his coat. "Send a telegram to Ashford. Tell him about the wedding. Tell him—" He smiled, a cold and vicious thing. "Tell him his bride ran off to marry a cowboy. That ought to light a fire under him." The man nodded and left. Briggs stood alone in his ruined office, staring at the maps on his wall, at the creek that ran through Callahan land, at everything he had worked for. "You think a ring is going to save you, Clara?" he muttered. "Theodore Ashford doesn't take no for an answer, and neither do I." He reached for another bottle. The game wasn't over yet. At the Callahan ranch, the night fell soft and quiet. Sammy was asleep upstairs, worn out from the excitement of the day. The fire crackled in the hearth. Clara stood at the window, watching the stars appear one by one. Eli came up behind her, his hands settling on her shoulders. Having second thoughts. No. She leaned back against him. Just thinking about what comes next. Theodore. He's going to be furious. The wedding, it's not just a legal obstacle, it's an insult. He'll take it personally. Good. Men who take things personally make mistakes. Clara turned to face him. "You're not scared." "I'm terrified," Eli said honestly. "But not of Theodore. I'm scared of losing this. Losing you. Losing what we're building." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I spent 4 years being scared of loss. It's time I started being scared of something else." "What's that?" "Not living, not trying, letting fear make all my choices." His hand cupped her face. "You taught me that. In 1 week you taught me more than I learned in 4 years of grieving." Clara rose on her toes and kissed him. Soft, slow, a beginning rather than an end. When they parted, she smiled. "Whatever comes Thursday," she said, "we face it together." Together. Eli agreed. Outside, the coyotes sang to the moon. The desert wind whispered across the land. And somewhere far to the east, a train was already being prepared, carrying a man who had never been told no in his life. Theodore Ashford III was coming, and he was bringing hell with him. Thursday came wrapped in heat and silence, the kind of silence that settles before a storm, when even the wind holds its breath. Clara woke at dawn, but Eli was already gone from their bed. She found him on the porch, coffee in hand, staring at the road that led to town. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. "Haven't slept right in 3 days." He didn't turn around. "Train gets in at 2. We should be there." "You want to meet him?" "I want him to see us together. Want him to know right from the start that you're not alone." Eli finally looked at her. "Unless you'd rather stay here." "No." Clara moved to stand beside him. "I'm done hiding. If Theodore wants me, he can say it to my face, in front of everyone." Eli nodded. Something like pride flickered in his eyes. "Sammy's still asleep," he said. "I asked Maggie to take him for the day. Didn't want him anywhere near this." "That's probably wise." "Probably." Eli set down his coffee. "Clara, whatever happens today, don't." She took his hand. "Don't say goodbye. Don't say anything that sounds like an ending. We're going to face this, and we're going to win, and then we're going to come home and have supper like a normal family." Eli's mouth twitched. "You really believe that?" "I have to." He squeezed her hand. "Then so do I." The ride into town felt longer than usual. Clara sat beside Eli in the wagon, her hands clasped in her lap, watching the desert roll past. Every mile brought her closer to the man she had spent 2 years running from. Theodore Ashford III. Even his name felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. She remembered the first time she had seen him at a Philadelphia charity ball in a tailored suit with a smile that could charm the stars from the sky. She remembered how he had made her feel special, chosen like she was the only woman in the room. She remembered the last time she had seen him at her mother's grave with that same smile, offering her a ring while the dirt was still fresh. And she remembered what she had seen in his eyes when she refused him. Not hurt. Not even anger. Possession. Pure and cold. Theodore didn't love her. He never had. She was a thing to him, a possession that had slipped through his fingers. And Theodore Ashford didn't lose his possessions. "You're shaking," Eli said quietly. Clara looked down. Her hands were trembling. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Good. Means you're paying attention." Eli's voice was steady. "But remember, he's the one who's out of place here. This is our territory. Our town. Our rules. He's got a federal marshal. And we've got something better." "What's that?" Eli nodded toward the approaching town. "That." Clara looked up and felt her breath catch. The streets of Silver Creek were lined with people. Not just Maggie and Ruby and the saloon women, everyone. Miners and ranch hands and shopkeepers. Mothers with babies on their hips. Old men leaning on canes. Even the children had come watching with wide eyes from porches and storefronts. And as Eli's wagon rolled down Main Street, they began to move. Falling in behind. Walking toward the train station as one. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "I don't understand." Word got out about why Theodore's coming. About what he did to your family. Eli helped her down from the wagon. "Turns out folks don't take kindly to rich men from back east who destroy innocent people and then come hunting for the survivors. But they barely know me." "They know enough." Maggie appeared at her side, shotgun resting on her shoulder. "You stood up for Eli. You protected his boy. You faced down Briggs when any sane woman would have run." She smiled grimly. "That makes you one of us." The crowd continued to grow as they approached the station. Clara saw Ruby near the front, Pastor Williams beside her. The sheriff, the real sheriff, finally arrived from Tucson, stood near the platform, his badge catching the sun. And then she heard it. The train whistle. Distant but unmistakable. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Eli's hand found hers and held tight. "Remember," he said, "you're not Clara Mercer anymore. You're Clara Callahan, my wife. And no one, not Theodore Ashford, not a federal marshal, not God himself, is taking you from me." The train appeared on the horizon, a dark shape growing larger, trailing smoke like a dragon's breath. The whistle screamed again, closer now. Clara watched it come, her past hurtling toward her at 60 miles an hour. She didn't run. The train screeched to a stop in a cloud of steam and noise. For a long moment, nothing happened. The crowd waited. Clara waited. Then the door of the first-class car opened. Theodore Ashford III stepped onto the platform. He looked exactly as she remembered. Tall, immaculately dressed golden hair swept back from a face that belonged on a Roman coin. His suit was worth more than most people in Silver Creek earned in a year. His shoes had never known dust. He scanned the crowd with mild disdain, the way a man might regard insects. Then his eyes found Clara, and he smiled. "My dear," his voice carried across the platform, smooth as silk and twice as cold. "You've led me on quite a chase." Clara didn't answer. She felt Eli tense beside her. A second man descended from the train, older, harder, with a federal marshal's star pinned to his coat. He looked uncomfortable, out of place among the weathered faces of the West. "I'm looking for Clara Mercer," the marshal said, his voice carrying with practiced authority. "I have a warrant for her arrest issued by a federal judge in Philadelphia." "There's no one here by that name," Eli said. Theodore's smile flickered. "Don't play games, cowboy. I can see her standing right next to you." "You can see Clara Callahan, my wife." Eli stepped forward. "We were married 3 days ago. Pastor Williams performed the ceremony. Maggie O'Brien was the witness. It's all official and legal." The marshal frowned. "Married. That's right." Theodore's face went still. The charm vanished, replaced by something reptilian. "That's not possible. She was engaged to me." "Engagements ain't marriages," Eli said. "And she broke that engagement 2 years ago. She's free to marry whoever she chooses." "She's a criminal. The warrant is for Clara Mercer. Show me where it says Clara Callahan." The marshal pulled a document from his coat and examined it. His frown deepened. "He's right," he said to Theodore. "The warrant specifies Clara Mercer. If she's legally married under a different name, then issue a new warrant," Theodore snapped. "She's the same woman. Changing her name doesn't change what she did." "And what exactly did she do?" The voice came from behind Clara. She turned to see Sheriff Marcus Webb stepping forward, his hand resting on his pistol. "I'd like to hear the charges." Theodore's jaw tightened. "That's a matter for the federal courts. This is my territory. Any arrest that happens here goes through me." The sheriff crossed his arms. "So I'll ask again. What are the charges? Theft, fraud, conspiracy. Against who?" "The Ashford Banking Company. She stole documents, sensitive financial records." "Is that so?" Sheriff Webb looked at Clara. "Ma'am, you want to respond to that?" Clara stepped forward. Her voice was steady, steadier than she felt. "The documents I took are evidence of crimes committed by the Ashford family. Embezzlement, fraud, bribery of public officials. My father discovered the truth, and they destroyed him for it. They forged evidence to have him convicted. He died in prison before sentencing." She paused. "Everything I took proves what they did. That's why Theodore is so desperate to get me back. Not because I'm a criminal, because I'm a witness." A murmur ran through the crowd. Theodore's face flushed. "She's lying. She's a hysterical woman who can't accept—" "I have the documents," Clara continued. "Bank records, payment logs, letters between Theodore's father and the judge who convicted mine. It's all dated, signed, and verifiable." "Forgeries," Theodore spat. "She fabricated everything." "Then let a court decide." Sheriff Webb stepped between Theodore and Clara. A real court. Not one bought and paid for by Philadelphia money. The federal marshal shifted uncomfortably. I have a warrant. I'm obligated to— You're obligated to follow the law, the sheriff said. And the law says a married woman can't be compelled to leave her husband without due process. If Mr. Ashford wants to pursue charges against Mrs. Callahan, he can file them here in Arizona territory. We'll have a proper hearing with a proper judge and let the evidence speak for itself. That's not acceptable, Theodore said. I demand— You're not in a position to demand anything. Eli stepped up beside the sheriff. You came here thinking you could wave your money around and everyone would fall in line. That might work in Philadelphia. It doesn't work here. Theodore's eyes went to Eli. Cold. Calculating. You're the rancher. The one who married her. That's right. Did she tell you about us? About what we were to each other? She told me everything. Everything. Theodore laughed a short, ugly sound. Did she tell you how she used to look at me? How she begged me to marry her? How she cried when I— She told me how you destroyed her family. Eli's voice was ice. She told me how you stood at her mother's grave and offered her a ring like you were doing her a favor. She told me how you tried to ruin her when she refused you. He stepped closer to Theodore, close enough to see the sweat beading on the other man's forehead. She told me what you really are, and I married her anyway, because she's worth 10 of you. Theodore's composure cracked. For just a moment, the mask slipped, and Clara saw what was underneath. Rage. Pure, uncontrolled rage. You don't know what you've done, Theodore hissed. You think this is over? You think marrying her protects you? I'll destroy you. I'll take your land, your ranch, everything you have. I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life. That's enough. Sheriff Webb's hand closed on Theodore's arm. You're making threats in front of witnesses. That's a crime in this territory. Let go of me. Do you know who I am? I know exactly who you are, and I'm telling you you've got no power here. Whatever strings you pull back east, they don't reach this far. The sheriff released him. You've got two choices. File your charges through proper channels and wait for a hearing like everyone else. Or get back on that train and go home. Theodore looked around at the crowd, at the hard faces, the crossed arms, the hands resting on weapons. He was used to fear, used to people backing down. No one here was backing down. This isn't over, he said, his voice low and venomous. You hear me, Clara? This will never be over. I'll find a way. I always do. No. Clara stepped forward, Eli beside her. You won't. Because I'm not running anymore. I'm not hiding. I have a home now, a family. People who will stand with me. She met his eyes. You can't touch me, Theodore. Not anymore. For a long moment, they stared at each other, past and present. Fear and freedom. Then Theodore turned on his heel and walked back to the train. The marshal hesitated. I still have a warrant. Take it up with the courts, Sheriff Webb said. Mrs. Callahan isn't going anywhere. The marshal looked at Theodore, then at the crowd, then at the sheriff. Something in his face shifted resignation, maybe. Or relief. I'll need to file a report. Consult with my superiors. You do that. Train leaves in 20 minutes. The marshal nodded and followed Theodore back to the platform. Clara watched them go. Her legs were shaking. Her heart was still pounding. But she was standing. She was free. Eli's arm came around her shoulders. You okay? I don't know. She laughed, a shaky sound, half sob. Ask me again in an hour. The crowd began to disperse, but not before dozens of hands reached out to touch Clara's arm, pat her shoulder, offer words of support. Minors she had never spoken to, women she had only seen from a distance, children who didn't understand what had happened but knew something important had. Maggie appeared at her elbow. Well, that was something. I couldn't have done it without you. Without any of you. You did the hard part yourself, honey. We just showed up to watch. Maggie squeezed her hand. Now go home. Rest. You've earned it. Clara nodded, but she didn't move. She watched the train waiting. 20 minutes later, the whistle sounded. The engine roared to life. And slowly, agonizingly slowly, the train began to pull away from the station. Clara saw Theodore at the window of the first-class car. His face was a mask of fury. She raised her hand and waved. The train disappeared around the bend, and Theodore Ashford III disappeared with it. Clara let out a breath she felt like she had been holding for 2 years. "It's over," she whispered. Not quite. Eli turned her to face him. "Briggs is still out of there, and Theodore might be gone, but he's not beaten. Men like that don't give up easy." "I know. There'll be more fights, more trouble, more days when you wonder if any of this was worth it." Clara reached up and touched his face. "It's already worth it." Eli's expression softened. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her in full view of whoever was still watching. "Let's go home," he said. The word had never sounded sweeter. They found Sammy waiting on the porch when they arrived at the ranch. He had escaped from Maggie's supervision. Somehow Clara suspected Ruby's help and was practically vibrating with anxiety. What happened? Is the bad man gone? Did Papa punch him? Did you punch him? Maggie said. I couldn't come, but I wanted to come and... Eli scooped him up before he could finish. The bad man is gone. No one got punched, and you young man were supposed to stay with Maggie. I know, but I was worried. Sammy looked at Clara with those big brown eyes. Are you okay, Mama? Mama. He had called her Mama. Clara's throat closed up. She couldn't speak. She could only reach out and stroke his hair while tears ran down her face. She's okay, Eli said softly. We're all okay. Sammy wriggled out of his father's arms and threw himself at Clara. She caught him, held him close, breathed in the little boy smell of dirt and sunshine and innocence. I'm glad you didn't leave, he said into her shoulder. I was scared you might leave. I'm never leaving, Clara whispered. Never, ever, ever. Promise. I promise. Sammy pulled back and grinned. Good. Because I told the other kids at church you were my mama now and they didn't believe me, so I need you to come next Sunday and prove it. Clara laughed through her tears. I'll be there. With Papa. With Papa. Eli put his arms around them both, and for a moment, the three of them stood together on the porch, wrapped in each other, wrapped in the afternoon sun. A family. Broken pieces found and fitted together. Home. But even as Clara closed her eyes and let herself feel safe, a shadow passed across the sun. She looked up instinctively, searching for the source. Nothing. Just clouds. Just the endless Arizona sky. Still, something cold touched her heart. A whisper of warning she couldn't quite name. Theodore was gone. But he had been right about one thing. It wasn't over. Not really. Men like him didn't accept defeat. They retreated, regrouped, found new angles of attack, and Briggs was still out there. Wounded and angry, his empire crumbling, looking for someone to blame. Clara held her new family tighter. Whatever was coming, she would face it. Not as Clara Mercer, runaway and victim. As Clara Callahan. Wife, mother, survivor, and God help anyone who tried to take this from her. That night, after Sammy was asleep, Clara sat with Eli on the porch. The stars were out thick and bright in a way Philadelphia had never allowed. Crickets sang in the darkness. The air smelled of sage and dust and possibility. I keep waiting, Clara said quietly. For what? I don't know. The other shoe to drop, something to go wrong. She shook her head. I'm not used to things working out. Eli took her hand. Takes time, learning to trust happiness. Did you, after Mary Beth? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. No, I didn't. I told myself I'd never feel anything again, that it was easier to be numb. He squeezed her hand. I was wrong. What changed? You showed up on that train platform looking like you were ready to fight the whole world. My son took your hand like he'd known you his whole life, and something inside me just woke up. Clara leaned against his shoulder. I was terrified that day. Couldn't tell. I'm good at hiding. So am I. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Maybe we can learn to stop, together. Clara closed her eyes. The warmth of him seeped into her bones. The peace of the night wrapped around them like a blanket. I love you, she said. The words came out before she could think, before she could weigh them or second-guess them. They hung in the darkness, honest and raw. Eli went still. Clara's heart stopped. Too soon, she thought. Too fast. He's not ready. I pushed too hard. Say it again. His voice was rough, broken. I love you. Eli turned, cupped her face in his hands, and kissed her. Not gentle this time, not careful. A kiss that said everything words couldn't, that sealed promises and shattered walls and built something new from the wreckage of two broken hearts. When they parted, his forehead rested against hers. I love you too, he whispered. God help me, I never thought I'd say that to anyone again. But I love you, Clara Callahan. I love you so much it scares me. Clara smiled through fresh tears. Good. Then we're scared together. He laughed, a real laugh, free and easy, the kind she had never heard from him before. Together, he agreed. The stars wheeled overhead. The night deepened. And somewhere far away, plans were being made, and telegrams were being sent, and shadows were gathering. But here on this porch, in this moment, there was only love. And for now, that was enough. 2 weeks passed, like water through fingers. Clara fell into the rhythm of ranch life, waking before dawn, cooking breakfast, tending the garden Mary Beth had planted years ago. The work was harder than anything she had done in Philadelphia, but it was honest work, real work. Work that left her exhausted at night and satisfied in her bones. Sammy followed her everywhere. He helped her gather eggs in the morning, chattering about his dreams about the horses, about what he wanted to be when he grew up. He called her Mama now without hesitation, like he had been doing it all his life. Eli watched them together with something soft in his eyes, something that looked like hope. But the shadow hadn't lifted completely. Briggs was still out there licking his wounds, plotting his next move. And Theodore's final words echoed in Clara's mind during quiet moments. This will never be over. She tried not to think about it, tried to focus on the good things, Eli's hand finding hers across the dinner table, Sammy's laughter ringing through the house the way the sunset painted the desert in shades of gold and rose, but the shadow was always there, waiting. It came on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks after Theodore's departure. Clara was hanging laundry behind the house when she heard the hoofbeats, fast, urgent. She dropped the sheet in her hands and ran around front, her heart already racing. Ruby pulled her horse to a stop in a cloud of dust. Her face was pale, her eyes wild. Clara, you need to come to town. Now. What happened? It's Briggs. Ruby swallowed hard. He's lost his mind. He's got 6 men with him armed to the teeth. They're at the bank threatening to burn it down unless Eli signs over the ranch. Clara's blood went cold. Where's Eli? He rode into town an hour ago for supplies. I think Briggs was waiting for him. Ruby grabbed her arm. Clara, they have him. Briggs has him at gunpoint in the middle of Main Street. Clara didn't think. She ran for the barn, saddled the fastest horse she could find, and rode like the devil himself was chasing her. The trip to town had never felt longer. Every hoofbeat was a prayer. Every breath was Eli's name. Please, please, please. She heard the commotion before she saw it. Shouts, screams, the crack of a gunshot. Clara rounded the corner onto Main Street and pulled her horse to a stop. The scene was chaos. Briggs stood in the middle of the street, a pistol in each hand, his face twisted with madness. Behind him, his men formed a loose circle, guns drawn, keeping the townspeople at bay. And on his knees in the dust, blood trickling from a wound on his temple, was Eli. "There she is." Briggs's voice rang out. "The woman who ruined everything." Clara dismounted slowly, her eyes never leaving Eli's face. He was conscious, alert. His hands were bound behind his back, but his eyes found hers immediately. "Don't," he mouthed. "Run." She ignored him. "Let him go, Briggs." Briggs laughed, a high, unhinged sound that sent chills down her spine. "Let him go." "Oh no, sweetheart. This is justice. This is what happens when people think they can stand against me." He pressed the barrel of his pistol against Eli's head. "I gave you a chance. I gave you both chances, but you had to be heroes. You had to fight back. The sheriff is 20 miles away. Won't be back until tomorrow." Briggs's grin widened. "I planned this, Clara. Planned it down to the last detail. By the time anyone who matters shows up, I'll be long gone. And so will anyone who stood against me." Clara's mind raced. She could see Maggie at the edge of the crowd, her shotgun lowered but ready. Ruby was circling around the back, trying to get a better angle. The townspeople were frozen, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. She needed to buy time. "What do you want?" she asked, taking a step forward. "Stop right there." Briggs cocked the pistol. "What do I want? I want what I've always wanted. Callahan's land, his water rights, his ranch." He paused. "And I want you to watch while I take them." "I'll sign whatever you want. Just let him go." "Clara, no." Eli's voice was cut off by Briggs's boot connecting with his ribs. "Shut up." Briggs turned back to Clara. "You'll sign. You think I'm stupid. You'll sign and then you'll claim it was under duress and the whole thing gets thrown out." He shook his head. "No. This ends today. One way or another." "Then tell me what you want." Briggs studied her for a long moment. Something shifted in his eyes, the madness giving way briefly to cold calculation. "I want you gone. Both of you. I want you to pack up and leave Arizona. Tonight. Take the brat with you. Go back east, go to California, go to hell for all I care. But get out of my territory. And if we don't—" Briggs pressed the pistol harder against Eli's temple. "Then I kill him, right here, right now, and I take what's mine anyway." Clara's heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She looked at Eli, at the man who had given her a home, a family, a reason to stop running. The man who had stood beside her against Theodore, against Briggs, against the whole world. The man she loved. "Okay," she said. "Clara, okay. We'll go, tonight. Just let him go." Briggs smiled. "Now that's more like it. See how easy this could have been if you'd just cooperated from the start." The shot came from nowhere. Briggs staggered, his shoulder exploding in red. The pistol flew from his hand. He screamed a sound of pure rage and pain. Clara's head whipped around. Maggie stood 10 feet away, her shotgun smoking her face like granite. "That was a warning," Maggie said. "The next one goes in your chest." Everything happened at once. Briggs's men hesitated just for a second, and in that second, the townspeople moved. Ruby tackled one of them from behind. Pastor William swung a shovel at another. Miners and ranch hands and shopkeepers surged forward, years of fear and resentment erupting in a wave of violence. Clara ran to Eli, pulling at the ropes binding his wrists. "Are you okay, Eli? Are you?" "I'm fine." He pulled free and grabbed her, crushing her against his chest. "I'm fine. You shouldn't have come. You should have run." "I'm done running." The fight was over in minutes. Briggs's men, outnumbered and outfought, surrendered one by one. Briggs himself lay in the dust, clutching his wounded shoulder, cursing and screaming threats that no one listened to anymore. Sheriff Webb arrived that evening. Someone had ridden hard to fetch him at Clara's shouted orders. He surveyed the scene with grim satisfaction. "Harlan Briggs," he said, standing over the wounded man. "You're under arrest for attempted murder assault, making terroristic threats, and about a dozen other things I'll think of on the way to Tucson." "You can't do this to me," Briggs snarled. "I own this town. I own." "You don't own anything anymore." The sheriff gestured to his deputies. "Get him out of here." They dragged Briggs away. The last Clara saw of him, he was being loaded into a prison wagon, his face a mask of impotent fury. He would spend the rest of his life in a federal prison. She never saw him again. The days after Briggs's arrest blurred together in a haze of relief and exhaustion. Clara slept for 16 hours straight, woke up starving, ate everything Eli put in front of her, and slept again. When she finally surfaced, the world seemed different. Lighter. Like a weight she hadn't even known she was carrying had finally lifted. "You look better," Eli said when she came downstairs. "I feel better." Clara sat at the kitchen table accepting the coffee he handed her. "Is it really over?" "Briggs is gone. His men scattered, his empires being divided up by the banks he owed money to." Eli sat across from her. "And I got a telegram this morning." Clara's heart skipped. "From who?" "Philadelphia. From a lawyer representing something called the Ashford Banking Company." The name hit her like a physical blow. What did they want? Eli pulled a paper from his pocket and slid it across the table. "See for yourself." Clara read it with trembling hands to Mrs. Clara Callahan, née Mercer. "This letter is to inform you that all charges against you have been officially dropped. Theodore Ashford III has resigned from his position within the Ashford Banking Company and departed for Europe, where he intends to remain indefinitely. Additionally, the evidence you possessed regarding financial irregularities has been turned over to federal investigators. Several members of the Ashford family are expected to face criminal charges. Your father's conviction has been posthumously overturned and his name has been officially cleared. On behalf of the board, we extend our sincere apologies for any distress caused by previous legal actions. We wish you well in your new life. Regards, Harrison Burke Escrow." Clara read it twice, 3 times. Her vision blurred with tears. "My father," she whispered. "They cleared his name." Eli's hand covered hers. "It's over, Clara. All of it. He's gone. Theodore's really gone. Running with his tail between his legs. Apparently, when those documents you kept went public, his family decided he was more of a liability than an asset. They shipped him off to avoid the scandal." Clara laughed a broken sound half-sob. "He spent 2 years hunting me, and in the end, I destroyed him without even trying." "You survived," Eli said. "You kept the evidence. You refused to give up. That's what destroyed him." Clara looked at the telegram again, at the words that meant her nightmare was finally over. "Your father's conviction has been posthumously overturned. Papa." She thought of him in that prison cell, thought of the despair that must have consumed him, the hopelessness, the knowledge that no one would ever know the truth. "He knows," she said softly. "Wherever he is, he knows." Eli squeezed her hand. "Yeah, he does." They sat in silence for a long moment. The morning sun streamed through the windows. Somewhere outside, Sammy was laughing, chasing chickens through the yard. "What do we do now?" Clara asked. Eli smiled that rare full smile she had come to treasure. "We live. We raise our boy. We build something good. That's simple. That's simple." He stood and pulled her to her feet. "Come on. Sammy's been asking about you all morning. He wants to show you the fort he built in the barn." Clara let him lead her outside. The sun was warm on her face. The air smelled of sage and dust and home. Home. She had never really had one before. Not one that felt like this. not one that wrapped around her and held her safe and whispered that she belonged. But she had one now. A year passed, then 2, then 5. The Callahan Ranch grew. More cattle. More land bought fair and square from sellers who were happy to deal with honest folk. The hay barn that Briggs had burned was rebuilt bigger and stronger than before. Clara started a school in town. Nothing fancy, just a converted storefront with donated desks and books she ordered from back east. But the children came and they learned, and some of them went on to do things that made her proud. Sammy grew tall and strong with his father's quiet strength and his mother's, his real mother's. Clara always made sure to acknowledge gentle heart. He learned to ride and rope and read, became the best student in Clara's school, and never not once forgot that he was the one who had brought his family together. I wrote that letter. He would tell anyone who listened. When I was 5. I wrote it because my papa was sad and I wanted him to smile again. And did it work? People would ask. Sammy would grin, Eli's grin, crooked and warm. Look at him. What do you think? And they would look and they would see a man transformed. A man who laughed easily now. Who held his wife's hand in public without embarrassment. Who coached his son in baseball and built his daughter a dollhouse. And yes, daughter. Elizabeth Mary Callahan was born on a spring morning 3 years after Clara arrived in Silver Creek. She had her mother's gray-blue eyes and her father's dark hair and a cry that could wake the dead. Clara held her for the first time and wept. "What's wrong?" Eli asked, panic in his voice. "Is something wrong with her?" "No, nothing's wrong." Clara looked up at him through her tears. "Everything's perfect. I never thought I'd have this." Eli sat beside her on the bed, his arm around her shoulders, looking down at the tiny face of their daughter. "Neither did I," he admitted. "After Mary Beth, I thought that part of my life was over, that I'd used up all my happiness. And now," he kissed her forehead, "now I know there's no limit. Not when it comes to love." Sammy burst into the room a moment later, unable to wait any longer. "Is that her? Is that my sister? She's so small. Can I hold her? Why is she crying? Is she hungry? I can get her food. What do babies eat?" Clara laughed and made room for him on the bed. "Come here, sit down. You can hold her, but you have to be very gentle." Sammy climbed up, his face solemn with the weight of responsibility. Clara placed Elizabeth in his arms, showing him how to support her head. "She's looking at me," he whispered. "Mama, she's looking at me. She knows her big brother. I'll protect her." Sammy's voice was fierce. "I'll always protect her. Nobody's ever gonna hurt her, I promise." Eli's hand found Clara's. They watched their children together, the boy who had started everything and the girl who was proof that everything had worked out. "You did this," Eli said softly. "We did this." "No, you." He turned her face toward him. "You stepped off that train when any sane woman would have gotten right back on. You stayed when everyone told you to run. You fought for us. For this." He gestured at the room, at Sammy, at Elizabeth, at the home they had built. "None of this exists without you." Clara kissed him, soft and slow, the way they had learned to kiss over years of practice. "I love you," she said. "I love you too." Eli smiled. Now and always. The years continued to pass. Elizabeth grew into a spirited girl with her mother's stubbornness and her father's sense of justice. Sammy became a man, tall, capable, with a spread of his own just over the ridge. He married a schoolteacher from back east, a woman who reminded Clara in many ways of herself, strong and determined, and unafraid to start over. "I learned it from watching you and Papa," Sammy told her at his wedding. "How to love someone, how to build a life." Clara had cried, of course. Happy tears this time. She seemed to cry a lot these days, but only from joy. Silver Creek grew too. The railroad brought more people, more business, more life. The little town that had once been Briggs's kingdom became something better, a community where people helped each other, where newcomers were welcomed, where second chances weren't just possible, but expected. Clara's school became a real schoolhouse, then a proper academy. Children came from 3 counties to learn there. Some of them grew up to be doctors, lawyers, teachers themselves. One of them became a governor. "You changed this place," Maggie said one evening, sitting on Clara's porch, watching the sunset. They were both old women now, gray-haired and wrinkled, but their friendship had never faded. "We all did." "No, you were the spark. The rest of us were just kindling, waiting for someone to light us up." Maggie patted her hand. "You remember when you first got here, scared and alone and pretending you weren't?" "I remember. Look at you now. Wife, mother, grandmother, pillar of the community." Maggie chuckled. "That scared woman on the train platform would never believe it." Clara looked out at the land spread before her. The land she and Eli had built on, fought for, loved on. The land where her children had grown up and her grandchildren were growing up now. "Sometimes I still don't believe it," she admitted. "Sometimes I wake up in the morning and think it must be a dream, that I'll open my eyes and be back in that boarding house in Philadelphia, alone and hopeless." "And then what?" "And then Eli rolls over and mumbles something about coffee, and I hear the kids downstairs arguing about whose turn it is to gather eggs, and I remember." Clara smiled. "I remember that it's all real, that I made it, that I'm home." Maggie squeezed her hand. "That's all any of us can ask for, honey. A place to belong, people who love us, the chance to build something that matters." "Was it worth it?" "Everything we went through." Maggie considered the question. "You tell me, was it worth leaving Philadelphia? Worth crossing a continent on a stranger's letter? Worth fighting Briggs and Theodore and everyone who tried to stop you?" Clara thought about it. Really thought about it. She thought about the fear, the pain, the nights when giving up had seemed like the only option. She thought about Eli's first real smile, Sammy's arms around her neck. Elizabeth's first word, "Mama," spoken with perfect clarity at 9 months old, like she'd been practicing in secret. She thought about this porch, this sunset, this life. "Yes," she said, "every moment, every struggle, every tear." She looked at Maggie. "I'd do it all again, in a heartbeat." "Then that's your answer." They sat together until the stars came out, 2 old friends at the end of a long journey, grateful for everything they had found along the way. Clara died on a warm autumn evening, 52 years after she arrived in Silver Creek. She was 91 years old, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Eli's hand in hers, even though he had passed 3 years before. Her last words were, "I'm coming, my love. Wait for me." They buried her beside him on the hill behind the ranch where Mary Beth and the baby who never lived were also laid to rest. 4 graves in a row overlooking the land they had all loved. Sammy, gray-haired and bent, but still strong, spoke at the funeral. "My mother came to Silver Creek when I was 5 years old," he said, his voice carrying across the crowd. "I was the one who sent for her, wrote a letter, put it in the mail, and prayed harder than I'd ever prayed for anything." He paused, looking at the grave. She could have turned around, could have gotten back on that train and found somewhere easier, somewhere safer, somewhere that didn't ask so much of her. But she didn't. She stayed. She fought. She loved. His voice cracked, but he continued. "She taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about showing up day after day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." He smiled through his tears. "She chose us. A broken rancher and his sad little boy. She chose us, and she made us whole." He looked up at the sky, clear and blue and endless. "Thank you, Mama, for everything, for choosing us, for staying, for teaching us what love really means." The wind picked up, rustling through the grass, carrying the scent of sage and wildflowers. And somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond the years, beyond all the struggles and triumphs and quiet moments in between, Clara Josephine Callahan smiled. She had found what she was looking for. She had found home. The grave marker stood for generations, simple and weathered, but never forgotten. The words carved into the stone told the whole story in just a few lines. Clara Josephine Callahan, 1855–1946. She came looking for shelter. She found family. She built home. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother. Her love echoes forever. And below that in smaller letters the words Sammy had insisted on adding. She answered a letter. She changed everything. The Callahan Ranch still stands today. The original house is gone, replaced by something larger and more modern, but the bones are the same. The creek still runs through the property. The hill still holds its graves. The story still gets told. Every year the family gathers. Children who have never met Clara listen to the tale of how their great-great-grandmother arrived on a train one summer day, answering a letter written by a 5-year-old boy who wanted his father to smile again. They learn about courage, about sacrifice, about the power of choosing love when fear would be easier. They learn that home isn't a place, it's a decision, it's a promise. It's a hand reaching out in the darkness and another hand reaching back. Clara knew that. She lived it. She proved it every single day of her long and beautiful life. And her legacy lives on. In the children who carry her blood. In the land that carries her memory. In the simple, powerful truth that she discovered in a dusty Arizona town more than a century ago. Home is not where you come from. Home is where you are chosen. Home is where you choose to stay.